The metallic tang of recycled nutrient paste clung to Anya's tongue, a phantom taste mirroring the recycled promises of the Galactic Council. Her brother Kai swore by that paste. It fueled his long nights repairing damaged peacekeepers, the very droids now repurposed for Krogak suppression. He bled out in Sector Gamma, defending a Xylar temple, a people who hadn't even offered condolences, let alone aid. The Council's communique barely registered his sacrifice, deeming it a necessary casualty in the ongoing stabilization efforts. Stabilization purchased with human blood. Anya watched the endless stream of data scrolling across her console, casualty reports piling higher than the promised resource allocations. Kai had believed in the Council, in humanity's role as the galactic mediator. He poured his life into upholding their ideals, even as their supply lines withered and human sectors crumbled under the weight of neglect. Now, the same Council whose peacekeepers he tirelessly repaired used his death as leverage, a statistic in their political games. The acidic burn in her throat wasn't grief, not entirely. It was a simmering fury, a slow-motion eruption threatening to shatter the carefully constructed facade of diplomatic calm. Kai's last message echoed in her memory, a grainy image, his face gaunt, his voice raspy, pleading for medical supplies that never arrived. He had died believing in a system that had betrayed him, a system that valued alien architecture over human lives. Her hand clenched into a fist, the metallic tang intensifying with each passing moment. Anya deleted the casualty report. A single stark question pulsed in her mind, amplified by the Council's casual indifference and Kai's needless death. Was peace truly worth this price? The diplomatic enclave, a supposed sanctuary, smelled perpetually of stale recycled air and simmering ambition. Its chrome corridors, intended to inspire unity, now reflected only Anya's exhaustion and the increasingly furtive glances of her colleagues. Oppressive confinement pulsed through the very walls of the place. Here, behind the gilded facade of interspecies diplomacy, treaties crumbled like ancient parchment and promises evaporated faster than spilled synth wine. Councilman Volkov, his face a roadmap of bureaucratic maneuvering, intercepted Anya near the hydroponics bay. He clutched a datapad, its screen displaying a fluctuating graph, undoubtedly charting the latest decline in human sector resources. Ambassador Sharma, he began, his voice smooth as polished plasteel, the Xylar delegation expresses concerns. Your emotional broadcast disrupted delicate negotiations. Anya's redeeming quality, her unwavering dedication, often manifested as an infuriating stubbornness, a refusal to compromise even when prudence dictated otherwise. My brother's death was more than a disruption, Councilman. It was a consequence. Volkov's gaze hardened. Consequences are for the unstable to bear, Ambassador. Your grief undermines our position. We must project strength, not vulnerability. He paused, then leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Perhaps a leave of absence? Until your perspective aligns with the Council's objectives. He held out a formal request form. Anya stared at the form, the sterile white paper, a stark contrast to the vibrant green of the hydroponic greens, the only real life in this sterile place. She knew Volkov's veiled threat for what it was, banishment. But something shifted in her eyes, a spark of defiance that even she didn't fully recognize. She didn't take the datapad. My perspective is humanity's strength, Councilman. Volkov's smile vanished. He pocketed the datapad. Then consider your security clearance revoked, Ambassador. Effective immediately. 2 peacekeepers, identical to those Kai fixed, materialized on either side of Anya. Volkov nodded to them. They moved forward, their metallic hands reaching for her arms. Their grip tightened, and she felt the cold sting of betrayal. He had expected this. Volkov watched her, his eyes devoid of empathy. For the greater good, Ambassador. Anya, stripped of her clearance and escorted to the Enclave's perimeter, knew her diplomatic path was irrevocably shattered. Her stubborn dedication, fueled by the ever-present question of whether peace justified any price, solidified into a new, terrifying resolve. She would bypass the Council entirely, appeal directly to the Human Systems Alliance, risk everything to expose the Council's corruption and inaction. Volkov had gifted her freedom of a sort. Her decision brought immediate consequences. The Enclave's meager stipend, her only source of income, vanished. Her reputation, painstakingly built over years of service, lay in tatters, smeared with the accusation of emotional instability. Worse, the peacekeepers now tracked her movements, their presence a constant, suffocating reminder of her isolation. Anya knew they were watching, waiting for any excuse to silence her permanently. As she walked through the Enclave's departure gate, a high-pitched whine, almost ultrasonic, resonated from the power conduits overhead. It was a sound she'd never noticed before, a subtle vibration that spoke of hidden stresses and imminent system failure, the sound of a system overloaded and on the verge of collapse. It reminded her of Kai's last transmission. Internally, Anya knew the path ahead was fraught with danger, a high-wire act without a safety net. Exposure meant imprisonment or worse. But the image of Kai's gaunt face, the metallic tang of nutrient paste, fueled her determination. She couldn't abandon his sacrifice, couldn't let the Council erase his memory with their hollow platitudes. Reaching the public transport terminal, Anya paused. She pulled Kai's worn comm badge from her pocket, the one she had retrieved from his belongings. Gripping it tight, she crushed it in her fist, the plastic splintering under the pressure, an action that was not done out of anger. It was a farewell, a final act of defiance, and a promise to make his death mean something. Anya barely reached the transport platform when the Enclave shuddered violently. The ultrasonic whine amplified into a deafening screech. Cracks spiderwebbed across the polished plasteel floor, and the power conduits overhead erupted in a shower of sparks. The Enclave, designed to withstand interstellar bombardment, was collapsing inward, its structural integrity failing catastrophically. Panic erupted. People screamed, scrambling for exits as debris rained down. The two peacekeepers who had escorted Anya stood frozen for a split second, their programming struggling to reconcile the unfolding chaos with their directives. Volkov's voice, distorted with static, blared over the Enclave's emergency comm system, ordering immediate lockdown. But the system was already failing. Anya, her mind racing, saw an opportunity amidst the chaos. The transport terminal, usually bustling, was now deserted save for a single maintenance worker struggling to release a stalled cargo shuttle. She glanced back at the peacekeepers, their confusion giving way to renewed purpose. They were advancing. Councilman Volkov's own. Safety was no doubt his priority. Anya's inherent dedication struggled against a powerful sense of self-preservation. The worker screamed as a section of the ceiling collapsed, pinning his leg. Anya, driven by her unwavering sense of fairness, hesitated. The shuttle door hissed, open, offering escape, but leaving the worker to die. In that instant, Anya made her split-second decision. She lunged toward the worker, ignoring the falling debris and the advancing peacekeepers. She heaved against the collapsed panel, adrenaline surging through her veins. The peacekeepers fired warning shots. Anya ignores the sound and focuses all the strength that she has. With a final desperate effort, Anya freed the worker. The shuttle, commandeered by the rescued maintenance worker, limped away from the collapsing Enclave. Anya's leg throbbed. A piece of falling debris had clipped her, but the physical pain paled in comparison to the gnawing uncertainty. Her actions had condemned her to a fugitive existence, branded a traitor. But the worker was safe. Small consolation. The shuttle docked at a derelict space station orbiting the Enclave. a forgotten relic of a bygone era. The worker, introducing himself as Jax, a wiry individual with eyes that had seen too much, led Anya through the station's grimy corridors. Inside a dimly lit control room, cluttered with salvaged technology, Jax revealed a hidden skill. He was a master hacker, capable of navigating the galaxy's most secure networks. "The Alliance won't listen to a disgraced ambassador," Jax said, his voice raspy. "But I can get your message to Rostova directly." Bypass the Council completely. He gestured to a data port connected to a jury-rigged transmitter. "It's risky. If we're caught..." He trailed off, his gaze hardening. "But I need something in return. Information. About Councilman Volkov's dealings with the Krogaks before the war." He paused, his gaze piercing. "Information I suspect you have." Anya's stubborn adherence to principles now collided head-on with the desperate need to expose the Council's corruption. Volkov's dealings were classified. Divulging them would be a violation of her oath, but the information could prevent future tragedies, vindicate Kai's death, protect the Alliance. The choice was agonizing: loyalty versus justice, silence versus truth. My oath. My brother, Anya thought. Justice or more casualties? Her gaze flickered to Jax, then back to the transmitter. She couldn't tell if trust him or not. Anya, her mouth dry and her heart pounding, made her decision. "I'll tell you what. I know about Volkov, but only if you promise to get that message to Rostova, unedited. The truth, all of it." Jax nodded, his expression unreadable. The deal was struck, a pact forged in the grimy heart of a forgotten space station. The journey began immediately. Jax revealed a hidden escape tunnel, a narrow, claustrophobic passage that snaked through the station's decaying infrastructure. The air hung thick with the stench of stale coolant and decaying metal, and the darkness pressed in, amplifying the sound of Anya's ragged breathing. Every creak and groan of the station felt like a threat, a premonition of imminent collapse. Jax moved with a practiced ease, his knowledge of the station's hidden passages a stark contrast to Anya's growing fear. The information about Volkov, the illegal resource trades, the secret communications with Krogak's factions, felt like a leaden weight in her mind, a betrayal of her oath that gnawed at her conscience. But the image of Kai's emaciated face fueled her onward. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a dilapidated docking bay. Jax had secured passage on a smuggler's freighter, a vessel bound for the Outer Rim, far from the Council's reach. The captain, a gruff woman named Zara, eyed Anya with suspicion. "Jax said you paid your dues, Ambassador. Don't cause me any trouble." As the freighter blasted away from the station, Anya looked back at the decaying structure, a symbol of broken promises and shattered ideals. Her choice had severed her remaining ties to the Council, branding her a traitor in the eyes of those she once served. Kai's comm badge's splintered fragment dug into her palm, a fresh sting in the wounds of grief and betrayal. And now she was at the mercy of smugglers, a very different person from who she once was. The doubt was gnawing. Was she doing the right thing? And then, as she looks at the dark space, Anya felt something shifting in her mind. What did they call people like her? Resilient. Days blurred into weeks aboard Zara's freighter. The Stardust. Drifter. The journey, a monotonous cycle of recycled air and nutrient paste, offered little respite from the turmoil within Anya. Zara, surprisingly, proved a reliable, if taciturn, ally, keeping the ship off the Council's radar and providing Anya with access to encrypted comm channels. It was through one of these channels that the revelation arrived, a transmission intercepted by Jax from a dissenting Krogak's faction. The Krogaks, desperate to expose the corruption within their own government, revealed irrefutable evidence that Volkov wasn't just trading with Krogak's factions before the war. He actively engineered the Elysium attack. His goal was to destabilize the human sectors, consolidate power within the Council, and profit from the ensuing chaos. Kai's death wasn't a casualty of war. It was a calculated move in a much larger game. Anya felt a chilling wave of betrayal wash over her, a crushing disappointment that eclipsed even her grief for Kai. The Council wasn't just indifferent, it was actively complicit in humanity's suffering. The very institution she had dedicated her life to was rotten to its core. She was nothing more than a pawn. Her first response was a guttural cry, a cry that had been building in the shadows for as long as the darkness of space. Then she did a smile. Her gaze hardened, hardening, transforming her face into a mask of cold determination. Her dedication had shown in something that was now not forgiveness, but a weapon. Anya stood up and looked at the dark space, her eyes burning with a newfound resolve. She activated the comm channel. "Zara, plot a course for Krogax Prime. I have a message for the Council." Anya's declaration hung in the air, electrifying the cramped bridge of the Stardust Drifter. Zara, initially taken aback, quickly recovered, her shrewd eyes assessing Anya with newfound respect. "Krogax Prime? That's suicide, Ambassador. The Council will be waiting. I'm counting on it," Anya replied, her voice laced with steel. Her resolve, once fragile, had solidified into an unshakable determination. Preparations began immediately. Anya, drawing on her diplomatic training and newly honed understanding of galactic politics, began crafting a broadcast, a damning indictment of Volkov and the Council's corruption. It had to be irrefutable, a carefully constructed narrative designed to sway public opinion and incite action. This was to expose the story. Jax, his fingers flying across his salvaged datapad, worked to enhance the signal, ensuring it could penetrate the Council's jamming technology. He also began gathering intelligence, mapping out the security protocols around the Council chambers, identifying potential weaknesses and escape routes. The clock was ticking, and every second counted. Anya, despite her outward show of confidence, felt a tremor of fear. She knew the risks were immense. The Council would stop at nothing to silence her, to protect their secrets. This was a death sentence. She could become the next Kai. She visited the freighter's small armory, requesting a sidearm. Zara hesitated, her gaze questioning. "I don't intend to use it," Anya said, her voice firm, "but I will." Hours before reaching Krogax Prime, the Stardust Drifter fell silent, a stark contrast to the frenetic activity of the preceding days. Anya found Zara in the freighter's small galley, meticulously cleaning a battered old blaster. The weapon, worn smooth with age, was a relic of a forgotten war. Zara glanced up, her expression softening slightly. She gestured to a chipped mug. On the counter, "Synth tea, not my best, but it's hot." Anya accepted the mug, the warmth seeping into her chilled fingers. She took a tentative sip, the artificial sweetness a strange comfort in the face of impending danger. Neither woman spoke. The silence stretched, filled only with the hum of the ship's engines and the distant clatter of Jax's tinkering. Zara, without looking up, reached into a compartment and pulled out a small, tarnished metal box. She opened it, revealing a collection of faded photographs. Family, Anya assumed, glimpsing smiling faces and sun-drenched landscapes. Lives lost, perhaps, to the endless conflicts that plagued the galaxy. A soft spot. Zara closed the box with a snap, her expression hardening once more. "Just wanted to remember why I fight," she said, her voice rough. A silent moment. Anya didn't respond. She understood. The Stardust Drifter breached Krogax Prime's atmosphere, sirens blaring. Jax, true to his word, had bypassed the initial defenses, but Council fighters swarmed the freighter like angry wasps. Zara expertly evaded their fire, navigating the crowded airspace with a reckless skill. But then they were hit hard, listing to its right. Anya raced to the comm station, her broadcast ready. She activated the signal, her message flooding the galactic network. "This is Anya Sharma, former ambassador. The council is corrupt. Volkov orchestrated Elysium." Suddenly, the drifter shuddered violently. A boarding party, clad in council armor, breached the cargo bay. The twist: Volkov himself led the attack. "Anya," he snarled, his face contorted with rage, "you should have stayed silent." Zara, blaster drawn, engaged the boarders, providing Anya with a desperate chance. Jax tried to reach the emergency comm, but a shot disabled the console. Anya, her heart pounding, knew this was it. Her inherent need to do all things the right way had put them all in danger, but Volkov had made a mistake. He had given Anya a weapon. He got closer, and then Anya pushed her elbow against the button, launching the Stardust Drifter self-destructing sequence. "This is for Kai and for humanity." The Stardust Drifter detonated in a blinding flash above Krogak's prime. Volkov's treachery was exposed. The cost: Anya, Zara, Jax, all dead, but it worked. The revelation was a signal that would affect the system. The Galactic Council dissolved within days, its corruption laid bare for all to see. The Human Systems Alliance, galvanized by Anya's broadcast, spearheaded the formation of a new galactic governance structure. The Krogaks, shamed by their government's complicity, underwent a painful but necessary reckoning. A new wave, a fresh point of view, new options to be explored. Anya's actions resonated across the galaxy, inspiring species to question authority, demand justice, and fight for a more equitable future. The cost for it had been a new scar to the whole world. Her death was a seed, hope born in fire. Years later, on a rebuilt Elysium, a memorial stood in honor of Kai, Anya, and the countless others who had sacrificed everything for peace. A young girl, a recent refugee. The young girl was looking at it, and she got near to her mother. She asked what all of this meant. She asked the deep questions of it all. The child's mother traced a finger across Anya's name, etched in polished plasteel, her face etched with a quiet resolve. "They showed us how to snap."